Hello friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video is a sample reading, demonstration reading. I always like to give credit to the decks I use. The deck I'm using today is one that's currently available over at Kickstarter, and it's the Nicholas Conver Tarot of Marseille, published by the Artisan Group. And there is their website if you'd like to get in on their Kickstarter. So prior to beginning the video, I did handle and mix the cards. I focused my intent, which was for demonstration purposes only, and with the understanding that I would finish the shuffle on the camera, so that to make it clear that, I'm not staging these cards, Anyway, the question for the reading, a client wants to know if she should travel. She's been given an opportunity now post-COVID. Things are opening up, and she has an opportunity to travel with a friend. She doesn't know if she should do it. She's not necessarily fearful of COVID because she's been vaccinated, but I guess she's got the willies being home for over a year and getting in that fear state of, maybe not venturing out. And she's not really sure if she's ready or if it's a good idea. So she's just asked for insight. Is it a good idea? Now you'll notice when you frame a question that requires a yes or no answer, I'll always say, well, if you're asking me for a yes or no answer, you're paying for a 6-card spread. A yes or no answer is going to be a 30-second answer, right? So I will try to get them to recouch it. Like, yes, we want to know if going on a vacation will be a good idea. But more than that, what will be gained from the vacation? What will be the benefits if you go on this vacation? If you take this trip, what will be gained, or what will happen, for good or bad? So with that in mind, we'll lay some cards. I like to do 3 or 6, sometimes 9. And I usually put that in when I shuffle and handle the cards, with the understanding that it will be a 3, 6, or 9 card spread, and I've established in my meditation that it would be 6. Now, the first thing I look at when I lay cards is usually to see the distribution of the suits. And here, you'll notice that we have coins, coins, cups, cups, coin, right? And coins and cups are compatible with one another. There's no adversity between coins and cups. They support one another. And so right off the bat, I can answer the question, the immediate question, would it be a good idea, with yes. There's nothing here that is suggesting a bad time. So the cards appear to be agreeable. And that's even before interpreting any of what the cards mean. Now, the first card out of the gate, on the surface, it could look like someone who's an adventurer, who's going out on an adventure. And most certainly that could be the case. But recognize that of all the suits in this deck of tarot, the coin suit tends to be the most conservative, or the most cautious, right? So we have an individual going out on an adventure, but he's not like going full throttle. He's cautious, He's going into this adventure with his eyes open, and he's just being careful. Excuse the I got a nasty burn in my skin. I'm sorry about that. The second card shows a partnership, right? So traveling with a like-minded individual, make sure that you're both on the same page about your expectations, but this partnership could be a good thing, right? Now, the Hanged Man can mean a few different things, right? In the context of a question is how you want to couch your interpretation of a card. Now, the Hanged Man can traditionally mean that there are consequences for certain behaviors, right? This is a card of punishment, but it can also represent literally something hanging or being suspended or time being suspended. And I'm not exactly sure how that means yet, what it means yet, but we'll come back to it because maybe when we read some of the other cards, we'll have an understanding of how this applies. Now, bear in mind, we don't always have to read left to right. We can read right to left. We can start with the first card that, catches your attention. But for whatever reason today, I was just drawn to read from left to right from the top row. Most of the time, I could have started here or I could have started there, depending on how the card struck me. So keep that in mind. And also, it goes without saying that just because this is the way I use and interpret pip-style cards, and in this case it's a TDM, it's a TDM style, doesn't mean that it's the only way or the best way or the way you have to do it. I'm just showing you the way I do it, how I approach the cards. Remember, I'm self-taught. There were no real books, going back, 40 or 50 years ago in suburban Philadelphia where I grew up. Excuse me. And I was really left on my own. And my first deck was a Best in Song, which is a pip-style deck. And basically, all I had to go on, since the pips are illustrated, but they're not scenic, right? So the tarot deck for me was a combination of suit and number, and then people, and then the special cards, the cards that maybe carry a little more importance or a little more weight in the reading. Okay, but I digress. Now let's look at the rest of the cards. Because the client is a woman, I recognize this card as the woman, and it falls directly under this card, which was a cautious adventurer in the context of the question, right? So this woman now is much more confident. So it's either that during the trip or as a result of the trip, she is definitely more in charge of her emotions, and it definitely was tonic for her. It was a good thing for her. That's followed by the Ten of Cups. The Ten of Cups is a card of emotional satisfaction and reward. So it seems as though, although she goes into it cautiously with a friend, maybe the Hanged Man represents the long space of time where she was inactive during COVID. It could represent that. But then, I'm reading it as like before and after almost. As a result of this thing, this trip, she becomes extremely confident and emotionally satisfied. The 10 is the highest number in the ordinal numbers of the suit of cups. And so it's like you can't get any more fulfilled than here, right? We also have a suggestion of the suit of coins here too, right? With the flower that appears in the coin cards. And so there's a great sense of emotional fulfillment, that you will be happy. You will be brought fulfillment with this trip. And it ends with maybe a more youthful outlook. Here she is entering into the proposition cautiously, optimistic, but cautious. And, here she's shed some of that adulthood stuff. She's more youthful here. She's more revived. And it looks as though, Yeah, this is a good thing. Now let's take a look at what the quint messages might be, and I'll have to pause to pull the cards. But here, remember, I never count court cards as numeric cards. So we have a 2 and a 12, which would be 14, which would be temperance. And down here, we have a 10. That would be the wheel. And then if we add 14 and 10, we'd get 24, which is not a number, but we'll reduce it to 6, which is the lever. So give me a second to pull all those cards. Okay, so I have to push things over a little bit so that we have space here. Okay, so here we have, there's a little bit of reservation going into it with a little bit of reservation. She's pulling back. Temperance is a card. It could mean a few different things, but I think in the context of, having been cautious and, having her life suspended for a period of time, the Temperance card, I think, really does represent a certain holding back or going into something in moderation, holding back a little bit. But once she's in it, she perks up, she becomes more youthful in a way. Her outlook, is more confident, a certain amount of overjoy, she feels a certain amount of, definitely a certain amount of joy, and to go with the flow, right? You can let go of the brakes a little bit. You can have a little bit of fun. And although this was not the gist of the reading, certainly the Lover card does not appear here, although indirectly it, kind of shows a woman who is emotionally satisfied and confident, right, after having gone on this trip. There is a sense that love is a feature of the trip. Maybe it will open up an opportunity. Maybe she'll meet someone and maybe they don't fall in love during the trip, but maybe it, creates an opportunity for her to keep in touch with this individual and, pursue something. But overall, whether it's a romantic love or just a love in general of just feeling, gratitude and joy, I think the trip will be a very good one for her. It will bring her heightened awareness of herself and, reawaken the need to become part of the world again, and let go a little bit. So I think it would be a favorable thing for her. And for those reasons, you can, I would be able to tell her that I think it's a good thing for you, and these are the possibilities that support that idea. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Certainly if the person was present in the room, or if, it was a real client and they would send me back an email, we would go back and forth, possibly with the need for clarification, or I would just send her another video or a voice message, so the dialogue can go on. It doesn't necessarily, with a remote reading, which I do remote readings. A remote reading doesn't necessarily end just because I release the reading, because there are considerations that the person might ask me, a question, right? She might turn around and say, well, the person who's invited me to go on this trip is a man. The information that she didn't share with me in the beginning, in which case this also makes sense. When I read it, I interpreted it as her position, going into something cautiously, because, the genders don't necessarily, you don't necessarily need to fixate that there's a man in the picture, right? But knowing that the man has asked her to go on this trip, then it makes a little bit of sense as well. I would still I would still have interpreted this as her entering into something cautiously, but the next card I interpret it as, going into a partnership with someone who's like-minded. And then it also then makes sense that if the like-minded individual is a man, for this to occur, right? So tarot is amazing the way it works out. I mean, cards can do double duty. This card could represent the man that she's going with who's like-minded, right? Or it could represent her own her own, her own caution in entering into the idea of travel. And it, if she says that the friend was a man, then this also, begins to make sense that maybe something will spark between them, or it will become more solidified, right? She becomes more confident and emotionally satisfied, right? As the trip happens, and to let it unfold, naturally, and to go with the flow. Right? So, once she gives you a little bit more of information, then, it begins to make sense not only to you, but more importantly to her, that this now suddenly makes sense, because she wasn't sure if she wanted to go on the trip. What maybe she didn't tell me was that, it was a man. She didn't mention that. And that, she was nervous. And maybe she was nervous not because of going out and about in the world, but maybe she was nervous because she wasn't sure about going with this particular person, And, again, the cards answered that question, even if I didn't have that information. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful to you. And until next time, friends, peace and stay well. Give me a subscribe if you aren't already subscribed, and please give me a like. It makes me very happy, and it encourages me to do more videos if I know you like them. Until next time, peace and stay well.